We made it. We made it. We did it. Everyone, I feel like I'm underprepared because I don't have any funny pictures or emoji in my slides. I think it should be fine.
This is Olivia.
Hello. Actually, one little thing. Okay, I have no idea. I want to have, okay, this doesn't work anymore. Let's just go with this then. That's fine. Okay, cool. Hey everyone. Thanks for having me. My name is Olivia. My pronouns are she, and I live here in Berlin. I live in beautiful Treptow down by the river. And I like to consider myself a software developer. I like to consider myself because in my day job, I'm a technical writer, and I haven't written any code in a week. But I still like to call myself a software developer because it's easier, because people understand when I say software developer instead of some weird mixture of stuff. I'm here today because I want to talk about Jekyll. Yeah, Jekyll. I'm the lead developer of Jekyll. Jekyll, I'm assuming everyone here is familiar with Jekyll, has heard of it. If you haven't, it's a static site generator that is written in Ruby and is pretty old. It's probably like the oldest static site generator out there. It was written originally by the co-founder of GitHub, Tom Preston-Werner, and it's used for GitHub Pages, which is a free website hosting service that directly integrates with GitHub. That's pretty much all you need to know, I think, I hope. So I want to talk a bit about Jekyll today. I don't have a project that I'm doing with Jekyll. I just want to talk about the project itself, Jekyll, because I feel like in these meetups, we get a lot of like projects, but we don't get a lot of like people who actually maintain open source projects. And I think that's a whole another section than personal projects. And I think it's very interesting to talk about. There's a lot to be learned. So I'm going to talk about it. Right, I'm going to split my talk into roughly 3 sections. In the first one, I want to talk a bit about what it's like to contribute to Jekyll, how the project itself is structured, because I feel like a lot of people don't know that. And then the second part, I want to talk a little bit about what we've been doing, the Jekyll team, because we haven't been sitting on our butts for eternity. We've actually done stuff. And then the third one, I want to expand on that to kind of tell you what you can do, how you can contribute, how you can essentially help us ship better software. That's the whole point. Okay, let's start talking about project hierarchies, open source project hierarchies. So for a lot of small open source projects, the hierarchy is usually there's a maintainer and that's it, right? And that works because a lot of small open source projects, there's just one person working on it, and this one person practically knows everything, and that works. That works up to a certain size. And then people usually bring in more maintainers. They just increase the number of maintainers, which also works up to a certain size. But once you get like really big, there's a lot of external factors that come in that you need to think about, like, financial stuff, like people from different backgrounds wanting to contribute to your project. How do you consolidate that? And that's why a lot of people have stuff like, they have like working groups, they have committees, they have boards, all that stuff, and that's very confusing. And I think that's what scares a lot of people from open source, from contributing, because they don't know the structures behind it. So I want to kind of explain. Jekyll has a fairly simple structure in comparison to those projects. It has maintainers. That's sort of the top group. That's what I am. Then there's Affinity team captains, members, and contributors. And Affinity teams are sort of like working groups. They're kind of, I would call them interest groups, based around, it's essentially a team of people that share a similar interest. So Jekyll has 6 of these. Oh no, I skipped a slide, there we go. Jekyll has 6 of these. So for example, we have our Windows team, which is just a group of people that want to improve Windows support in Jekyll. And that's, they have a common interest, and they are in this Affinity team. Each Affinity team has 1 or 2 captains, which are pretty much just figureheads. They don't actually have any certain administrative responsibilities. They're just people to talk to in case something happens that concerns the entire team. And then we also have other teams. We have like a documentation team, performance team, stuff like that. And these teams are open for everyone to join. Everyone with a GitHub account can essentially go on this website, click on this, and then you're in the organization, you can start contributing. But I'm gonna be getting to that later on too. So this project, this setup works for us because it's very clear in comparison to other open source projects. There's a fairly clear hierarchy. So when you have a problem, you always know who to talk to. When I have a problem, hey, this isn't working on Windows. Why isn't this working? I go talk to the Windows team. When I am implementing a feature and I ask myself, will this break something? Will this break next major version? I go talk to the stability team because that's literally what they're there for. So it's usually clear who to talk to. And also we have special tooling that is built around GitHub that integrates directly with these groups. That also works for us. But there's things that don't work so well. It can be confusing for newcomers. Even though we don't have one of the most complex structures, a lot of people still come and say, I have no idea where to start contributing. I don't know what to do. And I think that's open source's fault, partly. I don't want to get into that, but that's also our fault for not documenting it well enough. We could have a link in the README, we could have a description saying, hey, if you want to contribute, you can join these Affinity teams. That's literally what they're for. And also it doesn't consider financial stakes. We have none, but as soon as you start accepting, you need like a special board and stuff. And I have enough bad experiences with that, so I'm not going to talk about it. Because a lot of people don't know this, let's go through the contribution process for Jekyll. Let's say you have a really good idea for a feature, or let's just say, I think the example I have in here is if we rename the link liquid filter, the link filter, to dink. Just a completely nonsensical change, but in some hypothetical world, we decided that it's a good idea, and we have an issue open for it, and people have decided, we should implement this. So you come along, you think to yourself, I could do this. I could use my time to do this. So you fork the Jekyll repository, right? You edit the source files, you edit the tests, you make sure everything's running, and then you open a pull request that looks something like this, right? God, hate these screenshots. Yeah, this is a nonsensical example. I'm just noticing. So you have the fixes in there that automatically closes the relevant issue. And you open this pull request, and now people know what you're changing. That's what pull requests are for. And now a maintainer comes along and either approves or rejects or suggests changes to your pull request. Let's assume everything's okay. A pull request has gone through. So, it looks like this essentially. That just means Travis passed, and that means a reviewer has given their approval. And they comment this. That's specific to Jekyll. That's not in every open source project. Jekyll bot is a GitHub bot that exists for almost the sole purpose of merging pull requests and also generating change logs. So Jekyll bot, I think I have something here. Yeah, Jekyll bot merges pull requests, and we have a history document, which is basically a list of every pull request we've ever merged, divided into categories like release and version and stuff. And it then generates a changelog when we release a new version. That's what it's for. And there's the plus major there. You can see that's just a category, because renaming a huge tag is pretty much a major change. It'll break a lot of things. Yeah, but it also does, it generates our releases. It does Tina sign-in and stuff. It's very useful, and it's custom written, and we've really benefited from it, but it only works with our structure. Okay, cool. Yeah, let's move on. Last week, we released a new minor version of Jekyll, which you may have seen or not. That doesn't matter, because I'm here to talk about it anyways. We released Jekyll 3.8.0, and it's a minor version, which means there's a couple of bigger changes, but we also have a lot of minor changes in this version that we think dramatically improve performance for large sites. And actually, I don't want to tell you this, but I have like a tweet that someone tweeted, which I think is evidence enough that time was cut down by 71% it's still a lot in comparison to like other static site generators, but let's not talk about that. That's a pretty significant speed up, and it's just a lot of minor changes, a lot of like regex. Regexes are super slow in Ruby. Just a lot of Ruby specific stuff. So that's just what we did. That's what we've been up to. And now I'm going to talk about what we are going to be up to. Okay, so a little pop quiz. Is anyone here invested in Jekyll enough that they know what year the initial version was published? Does anyone know like the year when the first version of Jekyll was published? Anyone want to make a guess? Almost. It was 2008. 2008, the first version of Jekyll called 000, which is a really dumb name because it's not semantic versioning, but semantic versioning was actually invented after that, so that counts. That was released by Tom Preston-Werner. I think shortly after GitHub was first released. So Jekyll has its 10th anniversary this year, which is incredible to think about. It's one of the oldest open source projects on GitHub. And then 5 years later, the first stable version of Jekyll was released, Jekyll 1.0.0. And then each passing year, we sort of had a major version. And now, in 2018, we want to release Jekyll 4, Jekyll 4.0. I wanted to make like a big announcement here, but this is an announcement. Because we have a couple of breaking changes that we really want to get in. That's really what this version is for. The boring ones are, we're dropping support for Ruby 2.1 and 2.2. We're dropping pigments as a dependency, which if you don't know is written in Python, which means we have to compile Python every time we install Jekyll, which is in Ruby. And that's annoying, and we don't want to do that, so we're moving that. And also we're gonna make the link tag that we talked about use relative URLs, which is a specific thing, but it's a thing we've wanted to do for a long time, and it's a big breaking change. So we've held off on it for the longest time, but now we're gonna do that. We also have a couple of perspective breaking changes. We might generate JSON output. I think that would be useful for with the rise of Jamstack, I think it's called. I don't know too much about it. But it would be nice for like API-driven sort of static websites. That would be useful. We're gonna maybe upgrade Jekyll Paginate, which provides pagination. That has a new major version. Just do a bunch of other stuff like normalizing post-page and document behavior. It depends on you what's interesting to you about that, but that's just sort of a short list of what we've been doing, what we've been thinking about. But obviously we're open to anything. We are going to start sort of collecting ideas right now. We actually just formally announced it on our blog yesterday. So we're aiming to release 4.0 sometime like later this year. We're aiming like maybe September, October, I don't know. It's an entirely volunteer-run project, so things can just not happen at some point. But if you have an idea, if you always had this one thing that you wanted to see in Jekyll, then now is the time. You can suggest it. Stuff like what I would personally like to see, improved localization support, because right now I've looked and I don't think there's a single static site generator that has decent like internationalization support out of the box. And being able to do good internationalization on GitHub pages would be incredible. So I would really like to see that. I don't know, we have like basic support for it, I think, but extending that would be cool. And there's always stuff like you could add new liquid tags and improve performance even further. If you have some like kind of Ruby secret that doubles the performance of Jekyll, please tell me. Yeah, so that's just stuff you can do or you could suggest. Yeah, so, oh yeah, right. We have an issue for that. We opened an issue yesterday that you can suggest ideas for. It's in this link. You don't have to like type that in now. You can just go on the website and there's a blog post that has that link too. So, wait, let's jump over to a third section, which is what can you do? How can you help? Apart from what I've just said, which is suggest an idea, there's a couple of other things you can do to generally help us, not even like with this 4.0 version thing, but just in general, if you are in the mood to, I don't know, work on Jekyll, that's a stupid sentence. You can implement a feature, you know, if you're proficient in Ruby, or if you want to get proficient in Ruby, you can hop into the Jekyll source code. I swear it's not that bad. It's not as bad as other open source projects, I think. And you can implement a feature. We have a couple of open issues for features that we like to see, and especially with this wish list, there'll be a couple of features that have no implementation. And because we don't get paid for it, we don't have any financial drive to implement it. So if anyone would like to try their hand at something, go ahead. What we're also trying to push more is, like, essentially, I think what it's called is, what's it called? There's like an initiative in open source called first timers only issues, because a lot of people that haven't contributed to open source before have this really large mental barrier of making this first step of opening this first issue or pull request that I know has existed within me for the longest time before I actually started doing open source, and that I know exists for a lot of other people as well. So there's this initiative called first timers only issues, which are basically small changes like documentation fixes and like very minor stuff that could be normally done by an experienced developer in a minute, but are specifically reserved for people who haven't contributed to open source before ever, just for them to make this first step. And additionally, we would provide guidance. So not in form of like, we'll come to your house and help you, but we'll help you in the GitHub issue or in like a forum or whatever. We're trying to do a lot more of those. We've done some in the past. It takes a bit of work to set one up because you need to be really precise if you want to make it easy for people. You need to write a lot of documentation. Thankfully, the tooling around that has been better. There's been a lot of like great folks that have written some useful bots that automatically do those more or less. You still need to do a bit of manual work though. But you know, if you have a small change that you want to do and you don't know how to do it, you can always open an issue. We'll try to help you out. We'll try to mentor you. Yeah, that's fine. And if you don't want to do any of those, no, wait, this isn't what I was trying to say. Yes, as I talked about before, you can join an Affinity team. If you're interested in making a longer lasting contribution to Jekyll, if you're generally interested in improving maybe like Windows support, you can go to this website, teams.jekylrb.com. You can join the Windows Affinity team or any other. Again, it's free. There's no commitment expected from you. You can just join and be passive, that's fine. And it's open to anyone. As long as you have a GitHub account, you can do that. We have a couple of Affinity teams that you can join. So if you don't want to do, or if you can't do any of those things, it's fine too. You can always spread the word. You can write something on Twitter or something, or you can ask maybe you work at a company that uses Jekyll, and your company or like your coworkers have always had this like one nit that makes Jekyll like, not work that well for them. Now would be the time for them to maybe contribute something upstream if they wanted to. So, you know, maybe if they get paid for it, that would be fine. Yeah, and I think that's my second to last slide. So before I end this off, I just want to say, because I have the venue to say it right here, please, please be nice to open source developers, because a lot of us don't get money for doing this. I don't. I do this voluntarily. We get a lot of people that expect unrealistic things from us, like contributing, like doing like 20 plus hours per week on this. And we just don't have the resources to. So before you scream at anyone on Twitter or on GitHub, please think about their situation. That would be all I ask from you. And that's pretty much it for me. This is my slides if you want them. Any questions? I'll just do that. That works. If you have any, One thing you didn't talk about a lot, like what drone you need, what pushed you in and give you the incentive to actually get involved, what kept you there? So because I think this is recorded, I'm going to repeat it. What drove me into like doing open source? It's a good question, and I think I could talk a lot about this, but I mean, if you want more like information on this, you can go talk to me after this. I think for me it was, I want to give like some kind of like deep philosophical question, but I just had the time to. I had nothing else to do. And then I just kind of got roped into this, and I got to meet so many cool people, and now I'm here. But that was like 7 years ago, so it's been a long time. But the initial sort of drive for me was, let's check this out, you know, let's see what this is. Yeah. If there's no other questions, or if you have a question later on about Jekyll in general, you can come talk to me. I can't promise I'll answer everything because I don't know everything about Jekyll, but I'll try. Thank you.